Nick Dempsey and I talking USC football. Nick from Conquest Chronicles breaking down the Trojans late in June as we head toward summer camp the first week of August. And before that, Pac-12 Media Days, where we get to hear from Clay Helton and some of the star players for the Trojans and what they think about the expectations for 2017, which we know are going to be odds-on favorite to win the Pac-12. But there are a few possible challenges in the way. One would be schedule. One would be some issues at the offensive line position. The third could be anytime you're talented, like USC, like some of the top programs in the country, you lose a little bit more talent and top-level talent than the other schools you're competing against, such as the case with USC from 2016. So they lose some talent, some playmaking ability. They lose some leadership possibly as well, Nick.
Yeah, so it's you lose a guy like Dory Jackson is a perfect example. On the stat sheet, he's amazing, right? He did everything on all three phases of the game. But you also, what sort of doesn't still show up in the stat sheet is that college football especially is a very emotional game. It's prone to momentum swings, sometimes wild momentum swings. And a guy like a Dory Jackson didn't just score touchdowns and get critical interceptions. He would swing momentums in games. Juju Smith-Schuester was another guy like that, at least earlier in the season and certainly last year, where he could just make a big play and get everybody fired up, and all of a sudden he's got his team playing like they can do no wrong, and that sort of shows up on the field. You get a guy like Zach Banner on the offensive line who, the offensive line generally doesn't make momentum swinging plays unless they're negative. But he was definitely a leader in the locker room and on the sidelines, and you're losing all these guys that there's plenty of talent that will show up on the stat sheet coming up behind them, especially in this wide receiver group and in the running back group. But who is going to step up and, make that big kick return that swings the momentum of a game or gets the interception or like gets guys hyped up in the locker room and keeps everybody focused, even if you've had a bad half and, you got to go into halftime and get your mind right and get everybody refocused and re-energized. Who does that? And the easy answer is you could say, oh, Sam Darnold, he's the quarterback. He's a dynamic playmaker. But the answer for every single question problem USC faces this year can't be Sam Darnold, or it can't just be any one guy, right? It's a team sport. So it's who steps up. So for all the exciting and elite talent that's coming in, and man, is it good that we've seen from this recruiting classes that we've seen develop already in spots last season and the season before. Who's the leader here? Who steps up? Who's that one guy we were like, all right, we have to move the ball 5 yards to keep this thing going, and if we don't, we lose. Who's that guy we're going to point to and say, yep, that's the guy, he's going to make it happen? And when the team morale is down or things are going wrong, who's the guy you can point to and say, okay, he'll get him fired up, he'll get his unit focused up, he's going to take the lead here. I think that's something you're going to find out, especially right now in like player run practices where there's no coaching or there's no coaches running it. You'll see who sort of steps up as the season goes on. Maybe some playmakers will develop, but teams rely a lot on those playmakers and those leaders to really kind of get them through the ups and downs and momentum swings of a game. And right now, other than Sam Darnold, there really isn't one definitive guy or handful of guys, because you really need a handful that you can point to and say, yeah, this is the guy when the going gets tough, this is the guy that's going to make it happen. The encouraging thing is that in the Rose Bowl, actually, when Dory was out and their top linebacker was ejected for targeting, other guys on the defense stepped up. So the talent's there. Other guys have that capability, but we still need to see who is going to do that throughout the course of the season. And so this is probably the least concerning of my three, because they're there. We just don't know who they are. But it is still an issue. Like, you don't necessarily have to achieve the same statistical results as a Dory Jackson, but who's the guy that can swing the game momentum? So they're in there somewhere. We don't know who they are. But again, if there's no leadership or playmakers that step up other than, the presumed Sam Darnold, this could be, again, another issue long term that they'll need to deal with.
And to go back to your aforementioned issue of offensive line, Zach Banner, Chad Wheeler gone, two guys that could be depended upon moving on to the NFL. You talk about Adoree Jackson and Juju Smith-Schuster being the headliners that have moved on, and they're tremendous talent, but also guys like Leon McQuay, Justin Davis, a steady performer at running back, moving on to the NFL. So a lot of guys in a lot of spots that are going to have to be filled in by guys that probably have just as much talent, save Adoree and Juju to a certain extent, but guys that have as much talent but aren't proven. So guys with talent not be able to cut it on game day all over college football and not become productive impact players. So USC, with the question marks that every team in the country has, they just have a little bit more talent than just about everybody to make up for it. But schedule, offensive line, and the leadership playmaking void issues that could arise and hopefully won't. But if USC doesn't have quite the season that a lot of people are expecting, those could be the reasons why. Nick Dempsey, Conquest Chronicles, and myself get together to talk USC football. Join us on our YouTube channel where we talk nothing but Trojans and also have the individual segments ready for you on Mark Rogers TV. If you just want to hear the audio, you don't want to stare at us, we totally understand. You go to Podbean or you go to iTunes and you look up Mark Rogers TV and you see the USC content right there. All right, Nick, good stuff. We appreciate the time as always.
Of course, Mark, anytime.